So, hello everyone. My name is Isaac Davis, and I will be the ACF workshop facilitator for today's workshop. We'd like to welcome you to the Community Services Block Grant Advancing Tribal Economic Development Workshop. We are excited to have you all join us for the session today and during the ACF Indigenous Program Conference. Before we begin, we will be sharing some instructions on how you can interact during the conference. And I'll pass this to Erica.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erica Smith, and I will be the ACF room monitor for this workshop. I'm going to share quick housekeeping items before I turn it over to the presenters today. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them in the chat box. I will monitor and record these questions throughout the session. If you have any questions during the Q&A session, please raise your Zoom hand, and that is located at the bottom of your screen. Also, please note that I will provide a survey link in this workshop. We will also appreciate capturing your feedback and thoughts on this session. Please do feel free to take the survey after the workshop. And again, I will provide the link towards the end. Thank you so much, and we look forward to our presenters today. Excellent. I will now turn it over to Nicole. Thank you.
Great. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We are very happy to be here, and I am Nicole Oxenberg. I am the director of the Training and Technical Assistance Program for our CSBG Tribal Network, and I'm happy to be joined today by Cherise Johnson. Cherise, I will let you introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cherise Johnson. I'm the Division Director for the Division of Community Assistance in the Office of Community Services. And in the Division of Community Assistance, that's where the Community Service Block Grant program is administered from. So I'm really happy to be here. I have to say, on behalf of our director, Dr. Laniqua Howard, as well as our Deputy Director, Janelle George, we want to say thank you for allowing us to be a part of this week's important discussions. And we look forward to sharing information with you that we believe will keep us connected and encourage all of us to work even harder together to meet the needs of our communities.
Great. We're going to move our slides forward. And here is our welcome slide, and we'll keep moving forward. Okay, and we have our overview of the Office of Community Services. And Cherise, would you like to provide an overview of the services offered by the Office of Community Services?
Thank you, Nicole. But I was wondering, before I even get started, do we want to do a quick overview of the agenda so that all of our attendees will know what to expect over the next hour?
So I might have been missing a slide there. Did we go forward a slide, or did we miss a slide maybe? I think maybe if we go back a slide, or maybe there's just a ghost in the machine. There's our agenda. Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you, Cherise. Okay, great. So our agenda for today, this has been quite a week for me with the technology. Thank you, everybody. We today will be hearing from Cherise in just a moment with the overview of the Office of Community Services. And then we'll be walking through the Community Services Block Grant mission and purpose. And we will be talking about some of the opportunities for state and local partnerships with CSBG offices at the state and local level. I will also be looking at opportunities for direct federal funding through the CSBG Block Grant Program, and looking at the Tribal TNTA program, which is available to support both prospective tribal grant recipients and also current tribal grant recipients. And then we will talk about the role that this flexible community responsive block grant can play in tribal communities. And we want to highlight some of the great work that our tribal grant recipients have done in COVID-19 response and recovery, and in economic development and workforce development in tribal communities. And those programs and initiatives have involved community partnerships. And also there are other interesting community partnerships happening and will continue to be happening. We want to talk about that. We're going to talk about telling the story of CSBG and the important work that CSBG is doing on the ground in tribal communities. And we'll explore resources that are available to support CSBG programs and also all tribal community programs through the CSBG network. Then we're going to be opening up for listening to your questions, providing answers, also hearing what you have to share with your peers that are on in the session with us today online. And we'll be able to open up to the chat messages, open up the video lines and audio lines so that you can share what you'd like to share during that portion of our session today. And that's what our time together will look like. Okay, thank you, Cherie. Slowing me down.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for doing the overview of the agenda. I just want to make sure everybody knows what they're in store for. And it's important to us that you know that we were very thoughtful and planful in organizing the information today to be able to share throughout the network. So we can move on to the overview of the Office of Community Services. And we're going to start with the next slide that talks about the major goals of the Office of Community Services. As I mentioned earlier, Dr. Laniqua Howard is our director, and Janelle George is our deputy director. But in general, OCS has a strong team of staff that are committed to addressing the causes and conditions of poverty. And so when you think about what we've been tasked to do, we're here to do everything possible within the Community Services Block Grants control to make sure that we're addressing the needs from a community level, through community assessments. And I'm sure all of you all are familiar with community assessments because they tell the story of what's going on in the community and it guides how we will respond. We're definitely interested in the economic and social needs of our families and individuals that we serve, because we know when people have resources, they can move beyond the conditions of poverty and move into self-sufficiency. We want to make sure that we're focusing on things that will bring jobs and entrepreneurial opportunities into communities, because when individuals are self-sufficient, they're earning wages, they can meet their needs, we have healthier communities. We want to promote anything, any activities or strategies to make sure we have those things, security things in place through our safety net to avoid issues around homelessness, food insecurity, the impact of social determinants of health. And so these are some of the major goals of what we're trying to accomplish through the Office of Community Services. We're figuring out ways to build protective factors and assets to help low-income individuals move beyond their condition, as I've mentioned before, through asset building and financial security. Also, there's a big interest in using the community to support revitalizing communities in which there have been challenges, and making sure that we use the CSBG dollars as well as partnering through local and public agencies to leverage resources and to make sure funding and money is available in communities to carry this work forward. And we do that best through our state model, where the states pass money to the states to support, for the community action agencies to support low-income communities, but we also do it through our opportunities through our tribal grants that also work directly with individuals to help them to meet their needs. In the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about some of the key programs in the Office of Community Services that you all are probably familiar with. Of course, the Community Services Block Grant. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but it's really about how do you respond to the causes and conditions of poverty in a very thoughtful way to meet the needs of community from a community-based perspective. Our low-income home energy assistance program, many of you may know that as LIHEAP. That's another pillar in the Office of Community Services. And when we're trying to make sure that we meet the needs of tribal communities as well as states ensuring that they have cooling systems and heating systems and can be able to meet their needs and be healthy and live in homes that are can help to meet their needs. And then we have our low-income household water assistance program, which is new, but it's called LIWAP. But this wants to ensure that we have clean water. We have ways to respond to issues around people not having ways to bring clean water into their homes. And so it really is a nice combination when you look at the Community Services Block Grant, which is a flexible funding source. You look at LIHEAP, that's thinking about energy and keeping people warm and cool. And then you look at water, regarding making sure that people have access to water. And anytime you don't have access to heat and you don't have access to water, then we know that there are other things going on in a family. So how can we look at the whole family? And we believe in Office of Community Services, we have programs in place to fit that bill and looking at the whole family and making sure the whole family has resources and the entire community to meet the needs of individuals that may have been impacted by poverty in some way. So as we go to the next slide, you know, when we think about building the economic assets in the community, we also have two discretionary programs through discretionary grants. And one of them is community economic development. And as you can see on the screen, is to help nonprofits develop and invest in activities that support new jobs into the community, help individuals who are low income and accessing resources in order for them to be able to form strong family networks and family systems and be able to have the safety net needs they need in order for the community to grow and thrive. You also see rural development. Sometimes we hear a lot about what's going on in urban communities, but we forget that rural communities sometimes can be disfranchised. And so the rural community development grant that is issued is also there to respond to issues around affordable and safe water, wastewater issues, as well as rural community development to make sure rural communities have access to resources in order for the communities to thrive and to make sure that individuals' needs are met and families. I'm really, when I think about the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about the Community Services Block Grant. And it talks about the mission and purpose. So when we go to the next slide, you see the Community Services Block Grant was really born out of issues around race discrimination. And it has evolved to mobilize communities to look at equity, not only for some individuals, but for all individuals. And you can see here that the primary goals of the Community Services Block Grant is to really reduce poverty, to try to revitalize communities so that everybody is important and everybody's voice is heard. And also to make sure that the resources that a community needs are addressed by the community to revitalize communities, and also to empower low-income individuals and families to meet their potential. And we do all of those things best through working directly with the beneficiaries of these services, hearing the voice of the community in regards to what the needs are. Because if we don't hear from the community, we can't reduce poverty. If we don't know what some of the causes and conditions are in a particular geographical area, we are not addressing poverty. So the beauty of the Community Service Block Grant is it's there to mobilize thinking, to bring communities together and allow them to problem solve and develop strategies to move families and individuals out of the community. And specifically in this conversation today, how do we do that best with Native American and Alaska Native tribes and communities in order to push this agenda forward to make sure that we have resources available. We think about equity as an opportunity that everybody needs a fair start. And we think about how do we do that in a coordinated way to get results and impact and start to see poverty reduce and be able to talk about it and tell stories about it. Next slide. Some of the core services that are offered in the CSBG program include self-sufficiency programs. A lot of times they're job programs in which individuals learn soft skills that they can use to be more self-sufficient, employment opportunities, linking people to education and other resources to be able to attain employment that will move them beyond their condition, employment that has livable wages, employment that has benefits. You will see in some of our agencies that administer CSBG services, there's a piece around housing, how to make sure people have secure and stable housing. Emergency assistance often is a part of the core services in some of our agencies. And many of these programs are there to kind of fill in the gap and to make sure that families feel like and know that they have resources available in their community. And CSBG is most successful when there are partnerships at a community level, there's community engagement. It's most successful when we think about linkages and coordination and leveraging resources. And it's really successful when we think about health, mental health, physical health, and nutrition, because it's sometimes the social determinants of health. If you can't get good health care, then that impacts your ability to work. And if you're not healthy, that may impact your ability to even attend a class or get a certification to get a job. So all of these pieces work together to make sure that we have stronger communities. We're responding to the immediate needs of families, but at the same time, we're building self-sufficiency opportunities and opportunities to get employment to move beyond the conditions of poverty. Next slide. So the next couple of slides, we'll talk about just the reach. And I think I'm going to show you on this map that across the country, we have community action agencies. Next slide. We have community action agencies, and we have tribal grantees across the country. We also know that in every county across the country, we have community action organizations in which we hope our tribal communities are collaborating with to meet the needs of the families. And I'm thinking I'm having some technology difficulty because I can't see the slides moving. Okay, great. And so this map will be available to you to click on the map and see context in your state in which there are state administrators that can tell you more about the CSBG program or the CSBG services in that community, where our tribal grantees are, as well as links to know how to reach out and just find out more information to meet the unique needs that may exist in your community, and knowing that in your state there are agencies that are there to help in these efforts to combat poverty and to reduce poverty in communities, and to provide meaningful services that meet the unique needs of each family based on what that community needs are. So this is just a resource for you to use in order to kind of locate your CSBG state locator, and also to find out where local community action agencies are, as well as tribal grantees to carry out this work and to support communities. Next slide. There are various resources on the regarding the local community action agencies, as I mentioned earlier. And so the National Community Action Partnership website is an awesome place to go to be able to find out where CAAs are specifically in your area. And so we ask that you consider this as a resource that you can take back with you, and you can use this resource to find out where there are community action agencies, what type of services they provide, and how you may be able to establish those critical relationships and partnerships in order to meet the needs that are unique to your community or your geographical area. Next slide.
Okay, great. I think, Cherise.
Yes. I'm turning it over to Nicole.
Yeah, I think I can help out here. Excellent. So thank you, Cherise. So we're going to talk a little bit about, for those of you who might be interested in how would you become a CSBG direct funded tribe, and tell you a little bit about the network of direct funded tribes. So we'll go ahead to the next slide. So there is also, in addition to the funding that goes through the states and local community action agencies and reaches Native American individuals and families and communities all across the country. There are also 66 direct funded CSBG tribal grant recipients, and those are tribes and tribal organizations that are serving over 148 Native American and Alaska Native tribes, villages, and communities across 24 states. Additionally, there are tribal programs, as I said, that are receiving funding directly through state CSBG programs, and especially in some states in Minnesota, New York, California, those states are supplementing the federal funds and adding additional state funding to the mix. And then additionally, there are partnerships happening at the local level as well. So we want to acknowledge that. And next slide. So for those of you who joined today, because you are interested in potentially becoming a directly funded tribal grant recipient, I want to make sure that you know that all state and federally recognized tribes and tribal organizations can apply for direct funding from OCS, provided that they confirm the tribal population and poverty data for the proposed service delivery area, submit a tribal state population agreement, develop a CSBG tribal plan, which would outline what services would be provided and to whom, and submit an SF-424M form, a CSBG tribal plan, and all the completed and signed application materials to the Office of Community Services by September 1st of each year. I can move forward with the slides. Okay, so how would you get started in doing that? If you're interested in applying, you can contact us. We're happy to talk to you about the process. The Tribal TA team can be reached at tribalta@luxcg.com for a review of the application process and support materials. I'll give you more of a sense of what we can do, but we are under contract with the Office of Community Services to provide support to all prospective grant recipients and current grant recipients. We provide one-on-one help. You just give us a call or send us an email and we can walk through the steps. We'll have a slide later that shows you the online resource center, and all the materials are there. We've tried to make it as straightforward and easeful as possible, and OCS has really worked on streamlining that process. You send an email to the Office of Community Services at csbgtribes@acf.hhs.gov to let them know that your tribe intends to apply. Then the first step in data collection would be to pull together the tribal population and poverty data for the proposed service area. And we have information, resources, and some templates for the state tribe population concurrence letters. We can help you with that. And then you would be contacting the state CSBG administrator to coordinate that signed letter of concurrence on the tribal state population data. And that is because the state has also submitted their population data. And so in order for all of the allocation information to be determined for the state allocation and the tribal allocation, the state population data and the tribal population data would be put together. And so that's a mechanism for coordinating that information. And again, the tribal team at Lux and also the tribal team at OCS are both very happy to help. And I personally am happy to help coordinate. My team is happy to help coordinate, and we will be posting contact information for everybody here, Cherise, Isaac, myself, and all of our teams later in this presentation. We can move forward in the slides. So as I was mentioning, we have the tribal training and technical assistance. We'll keep moving forward. Okay, and support is available for those of you who have been on these presentations with me before. I'll say it again, I mean it. You heard OCS team say it as well. We really are happy when we hear from you. Give us a call, 301-244-3557 or tribalta@luxcg.com. We're happy to provide one-on-one support we will answer any questions. We have fillable PDF tools that help walk you through the process. You just are filling in the blanks for each of the questions. We're happy to help with the process of completing those tools. We also help review the tools before you submit them so that you don't have surprises in the process after you've submitted them. And we can help also with PDF issues, working with Adobe. And we can also help connect any prospective grant recipients with the OCS tribal team, with the OLDC help desk as well. Any of the parts of the process, we're happy to help play a central coordinating role. So again, it's 301-244-3557 or tribalta@luxcg.com. And again, the deadline is September 1st for when those plans and applications need to be submitted. We're at March 24th right now. This is a great time to be starting to think about the population data, getting that pulled together ahead of time so that we can do the internal work that's needed to get your accounts set up and get things planning ahead for you to get your CSBG tribal planning process in place, get you trained so that you know what you need to know to have your summer months ready for your public review of your plan and be able to get your materials into OCS in a timely fashion for a successful acceptance of your plan. Okay, we can move forward. And as promised, this is the slide about the CSBG Tribal Online Resource Center. All that I have just said is going to be repeated on the Tribal Resource Online Resource Center. And that is found at csbgtribalta.com. And again, we can connect you there if you connect with us, but everything is there. And I'll move us forward again in the slides. And also, as promised, here's where you can find all of us anytime. Give everybody a moment. These slides will be available on the ANA resources page there. My kids have taught me you can take a screenshot too of the page right now. And CSBG tribes at acf.hhs.gov gets you everyone over there. Tribal TA at luxcg.com gets you everyone over here. Okay, and I'll move us forward. Okay, so CSBG Community Responsive Block Grant. I'm going to move us forward here. I think I've made my point about us being here for you. Alrighty, Sharice went into some detail already about the CSBG core services. So this is just a reminder that CSBG can be used in a variety of capacities in the community. And I think the important piece for us to say here, and I like that this is even designed as building blocks, and you could build a bridge with these, that we, CSBG is often building bridges and filling in gaps and being used as these blocks, important, really important blocks in the community to meet the community need. And all of you are here as through the, ANA umbrella as well. And so this importance of community planning is well known to everyone in this gathering. And so that community needs assessment, which is also at the heart of the CSBG process, is helping to dictate how the CSBG is being used in tribal communities. And there's a lot of flexibility to meet and respond to those needs as defined by your tribal community. All right.
And Nicole, I just wanted to add that CSBG takes a lot of pride in the fact that the services provided are flexible because, CSBG is about mobilizing communities to do great work and to meet the needs of people that may be unfortunate or have not reached their potential, but the flexibility is what to me is a hallmark of the work, and thinking about different ways by using that community assessment to establish really, really important partnerships, to figure out ways how do you leverage the resources that are available with you, where public health may not be able to do one piece of the work. Sometimes CSBG funding is there to fill in that gap so that we can have a whole family approach to how we move forward. And I'm thinking that the same thing, these types of flexibilities make it even easier when you take your community assessment and you're considering to apply or partner with a community action agency to apply to be a grantee, is that you think about how all of these services, who are the key people in your community that you can partner with to really do a great job. And CSBG, a lot of times, is that glue or that extra little piece of resources that are needed in order to address issues around homelessness in a holistic way, or to think about what services may be available for youth development, and you're partnering with 4-H or other community organizations. So CSBG is there to help to fill in the gap, to mobilize thinking, to think out of the box and think about other opportunities, and to leverage resources and information so that you can meet your community's unique needs.
Exactly. Great. Okay, so we'll move forward. Excellent. Okay, now here's where we hope that we will inspire you a bit and brag about our wonderful tribal grant recipients a little bit. And we'll move forward with the slides. And I'm also noting the time because I want to make sure I have time for the questions. So I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. Our tribal grant recipients have been amazing. These last couple of years, really, they have been innovative. They have been determined and resilient, and just really have faced the challenge and risen way over and above in their ability to use CSBG to leverage an emergency response and coordination and genuine care for their communities with health and safety initiatives, income access, food security, educational support, COVID testing, and vaccine outreach efforts. And we continue with the vaccines we'll talk about more. We'll keep moving forward with the slides. We had, as I mentioned, the COVID testing and vaccine and healthcare continues to be something that CSBG funds have been prioritizing and can be used to support in the community. I'll move forward. Fort Belknap Indian Community has been using their CSBG funds to support their emergency response efforts. Here you can see them in action. And in the next slide, we will see the Lumbee Tribe of North Carolina, CSBG staff suited up and providing testing and vaccines. They're using CSBG funds and staff to help support their new mobile vaccine effort too, taking vaccines to folks who can't get out to go get their boosters, bringing it to their homes as needed. So lots of creative, innovative work that's happening, being supported with CSBG funds. Next slide, please. Cherokee Nation had to respond to over 45,000 grant requests for technology support to help respond to the education needs for all of the students that were being educated at home and needing technology support in order to respond to the new broadband connectivity needs and making sure that the kids stayed on track for graduation readiness, which is a priority for the tribe. And they're using CSBG CARES Act supplemental funding to support that effort. Moving forward, please. And economic development is also an area that might inspire you and where we want to highlight what our tribal grant recipients are doing. And we know it's an area that's been highlighted as very important to our tribal network. And CSBG can be a really important funding partner at the table in planning and in funding the economic development and workforce development efforts in tribal communities. And move forward the slides, please. Cherise, while we're waiting for the slide, I don't know if you wanted to say something. I saw you unmute.
Well, you know, as you talked about COVID-19 and the impact of the pandemic, I also want to acknowledge that I know a lot of great work has gone on in tribal communities in order to meet those needs of your individuals and families. But what's most important is that we do have to think about how do we use this time and how do we actually take full advantage of CSBG funding to support revitalizing our communities in regards to jobs that were lost during the pandemic, and really making an investment to build things back in recovery. So I'm sure that as you think about economic and workforce development, please think about how CSBG, along with your partnerships with public and private partnerships, are really thinking about how to restore jobs, make sure there are new opportunities for employment, be a part of discussions, whether it's with your workforce development commission or other workforce activities going on in your area, to really think about establishing jobs where people can earn livable wages, thinking about trades and vocational opportunities for people to develop skills to get better jobs. Because when families and individuals have income and steady resources to meet their basic needs, people are healthier, they are more engaged, and they look for opportunities to help others. And I'm sure that is the case in each of your communities. But creating jobs and jobs with livable wages and jobs in which you can help build skills really are things that we ask that you consider as you continue this work. And if you're interested even in being a direct funded tribe, as you develop your plans and how you really want to impact poverty, may best be suited through economic and workforce development activities that support gainful employment and self-sufficiency for the individuals and families that you serve.
Great.
So
it was perfect, and it was a perfect overview of the slide, which caught up with it, which is that's everything that Cherise was just speaking to can be supported and has been being supported by some of our tribal grant recipients, including being able to partner with other programs to help take some programs that are providing only a minimum wage and partnering up to a living wage, making sure to, sometimes it's amplifying what is made possible through other programs to help take the job training and make it, take it a step further, to take education programs and take a step further, take job creation programs. And so I just want to add that piece to it. Well, to go to the next slide, please. And a couple of examples of some of our great tribal grant recipients. Northern Arapaho Tribe has used CSBG program funds to provide employment opportunities for tribal individuals in the community. They're also supporting workforce development services, which also has included making sure that professional clothing is available for folks and that their transportation needs are being met. That referrals are provided to tribal and non-tribal employment readiness programs and educational institutions. Next slide, please. The Navajo Nation has subsidized adult employment for 6 months of on-the-job training with the possibility of permanent employment with the employer. And they have a memorandum of agreement with tribal employers to provide tribal members the opportunity to enhance job performance skills in certain areas. And they partner with local colleges, universities, public and private organizations. So these are some specific examples. We'll move forward, please. Okay, tell your story. Cherise, did you want to say, I know this is something near and dear to you.
Well, I want to say one thing and then I want to move forward with tell your story, but don't forget that we also have opportunities that tribes that want to be Public Law 477 tribes through the Bureau of Indian Affairs. That's an opportunity also in which the funding is consolidated, but the plans that are created are just as important to meet the unique needs in communities, so in tribal communities. So I just want to say that that's another area or opportunity to be a part of the work of CSBG through the consolidated approach through 477, Public Law 477, consolidated plans. Telling your story is really important to this administration. It actually allows us to visually see and often hear or read stories about the impact of the work that you're doing. And through good data collection, through chronicling what is going on, we were able to even create some of the share some of the information that you see on the slides today. That was a story about the work. It was a story about the strategies, the partnerships. And that's so important as you implement your programs to figure out ways to really tell a strong story so that we can share that information from the federal perspective with lawmakers across Administration for Children and Families, with other program offices about the great work that's going on. But it does require intentionality of collecting information, hearing stories from the field, short videos. I'm sure that Nicole is going to talk about it a little bit more, but whatever way you can tell your stories through pictures. We've received pictures like from the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina of the work that they're doing, testimonial or quotes from people who benefited from some of the services, and then the photos that show how all hands on deck, how communities came together, whether it was public health or the public school system, the community action agency, tribal communities, food banks, how they would come together to be able to address the needs. So telling your story in different ways is really important to us. It keeps us connected to the field, but it also allows us to celebrate with you regarding the great work that you're doing to help individuals and families. So I hope that didn't sound like an infomercial as much as it is. I just really think the value of a story really helps us to understand what's going on as policymakers and be able to amplify the work of tribe and tribal communities in meeting the needs of individuals and families.
Great, thank you, Cherise. And we'll go to the next slide, and we have an opportunity really for everybody. Oops, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about it. There it is, yay. But we have specifically asking for our CSBG network right now to share stories about tribal vaccine outreach. And that is something that our CSBG network has been working on. And we are quite interested in promoting vaccine outreach and are interested in hearing everyone's vaccine outreach story. And in fact, anyone who wants to put anything in the chat, we are collecting the information. We're very happy to do so. Also, please send us an email at tribalta@luxcg.com. Also, I think that Erica could post into the chat box. We have a survey link, like a little a link that could be put in there for our, I think there's a Google survey floating around somewhere. But anyway, the primary questions are, did the vaccine help ease your anxiety and fears of the effects of the pandemic? How has the vaccine availability helped you or your community? Did you participate in any vaccine coordination initiatives? Because we know that many of you as service providers and coordinators have been playing a really central role in helping to make sure that that outreach is happening in your communities. And how has life changed for you and those in your programs since receiving and distributing the programs? Since receiving and distributing the vaccines. And thank you. There's the Survey Monkey. That's the word I couldn't think of, was Survey Monkey. Thank you very much. Okay, great. So next slide, please. Resources, and we'll go on to the next slide. Excellent. Alrighty, so just to recap some of the things that we have mentioned, we have the CSBG Tribal Resource Center, which is csbgtribalta.com. We have the Office of Community Services website, which is acf.hhs.gov/OCS. The National Association for State Community Services Program, NASCAP, is nascap.org, NASCSP.org. And that is where you would find your state CSBG partners. So if you're looking for where would you find your state partners, we also have that directory on the CSBG tribalta.com website. So if you want sort of the one-stop shop, just saying, you can go there and you can find the link as well. And then also the National Community Action Partnership, which is where you would find your local partner. So if you're wondering, where is the CSBG Local Community Action Agency in my area? We also have the slide with that has the map, the find of the agency map. And then their national association is the National Community Action Partnership. Those are our primary national partners there. Next slide, please. Questions? We've reached the time for, everyone's gonna mad rush to the chat now, right? With their questions, or raise their hands and let us know what you'd like to say, how we can help. We are happy to. Thank you for your attention to everything we've laid out here. Erica is someone, I think I'm supposed to turn the mic over to someone for any other comment.
Sure, I'll finish up right here if you don't mind. So thank you everyone for attending this conference this afternoon. As Nicole mentioned, we are opening up the floor for questions, and we really hope that we get some participation. So don't be shy now. Let us know if there's anything that you have pending in the back of your minds that you want us to answer. If not, you can always feel free to leave wow, we got our first question. Thank you. So our first question is, are Pacific Islanders able to apply individually for these grants, or are the grants only available through the state?
So there are, and I'm hoping I don't miss anyone. Some of the islands are eligible to apply for direct funding in regards to the territories for CSBG resources. Otherwise, they will work with any other community partners that may be in their area, like SSBG, the Social Services Block Grant, to have these resources available in their territory or jurisdiction. It's Guam, the Mariana Islands, American Samoa, and I may be missing one. I apologize if I am, but different territories are eligible to apply for funding, along with the states and Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands included. And Hawaii, of course, is a state.
Thank you, Ty, for that question. Do we have any more?
I have, someone is just reminding me in a private message saying that yesterday there was a question in LAHEAP about what happens if a state won't partner with the tribes. I was in that session as well, and I would say the same thing for CSBG, which is that I know the OCS team and the Tribal TNTA team are more than happy to help with partnerships and conversations with the state administrators anytime if there's seem to be glitches in communication with any getting partnerships started and helping to build those bridges and make those relationships. Sharice, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I think I'm a little disappointed to hear that that's the case, or that's the perception, if I can be really honest. And we will do everything that we can, consistent with what Nicole shared, to support developing those relationships and partnerships. The Office of Community Services and CSBG, we're there to serve all vulnerable communities, not just a select few. And we will do everything that we can through additional training, sharing of information, letters out to the field, to talk about how important these partnerships are. And Nicole didn't mention this earlier, but those training and technical assistance partners that you saw on a couple of slides back with NASCAS and NCAP, she's a part of those discussions on how to, from the other side, partner even more with tribe and tribal organizations. So I feel like it's just a matter of us pushing from both ends a little harder, setting some examples of where successful partnerships exist and giving people tools and resources in regards to how to form those relationships. So that is a great question, but the expectation is that we serve the most vulnerable families and communities across the country. And that's inclusive of tribes and tribal communities, working with states and territories to carry out that expectation.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's see, please don't be shy. Looking here for any more hands. Is there anyone who wants to raise their hand or put a note in the chat that is thinking about applying for the first time this year? And actually, Cecil, if you don't mind taking down the slide share. No, it just then I could, thank you. There, now I can see a little bit better. See if I have any hands of folks.
You know, as you kind of scroll through who's here, I think I'm just so excited to see how many people attended the session to learn more about the Office of Community Services and the Community Services Block Grant. I just want to reiterate many of the things that have been said. This is an opportunity for you all to ask us questions in regards to, you know, how to really use the Community Services Block Grant as a resource in tribal communities. And even if you don't get your question in today, please know that all of the resources that Nicole shared, we're there to answer your questions as they may come up later. We do need feedback from each of you on this call. If you're a current tribal grantee or you're working with your state and telling that story around how those relationships are strong and some of the activities that you're doing. But everyone on this call, I just want to say we value your work, your interest in learning more about community services. The Office of Community Services was a CSBG block grant, and we know we have to make sure our communities are strong, and we just need your help in helping us to achieve that.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, great. And I see a request about wanting to be able to send the opportunities. That's great. We can get information for the Pacific Islanders. And then I'm seeing a question that says, does the block grant support wage subsidy programs for recovering businesses?
Yes, and it's done many ways. And so that's a great question. That is an opportunity. We've heard about some examples where the block grants used to work with employers that may, and this is a hypothetical, so I don't want it to sound like it's like the only way, but they, the CSBG block grant may for a period of time support, you know, $2 to add to the $13 that the employer is already paying the employee to transition them into a job in which they can start to meet their income potential as well as self-sufficiency outcomes. So that has been implemented in some programs across the country, job subsidy. But please visit our website, stay tuned to what's going on. It's just a resource for information. Please reach out to your local community action agency, considering what we shared in one of the maps. There are many opportunities for us to learn from each other on how to support vulnerable families and individuals. And tribal communities are part of that big circle of people that may have needs, plus the strengths that exist in tribal communities. We can all learn from them. And so, you know, the convergence of states and tribes and territories working together and sharing information, we become a stronger network, and we can hopefully start to see the dial move in regards to addressing the needs of individuals and families.
Great. Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn it back to Erica, who I think has our final instructions. Thank you very much.
Again, thanks everybody for attending day 3 of the 2022 ACF Indigenous Programs Conference. We hope that it's been both informative and inspiring. Before we depart today, just wanted to highlight a couple of items. If you would please continue to visit the 2022 ACF IPC website to explore the virtual exhibitor hall to view ACF grant recipient projects throughout the United States and the Pacific Islands. You'll be able to find this link in the chat box shortly after the end of this conversation. Also, please visit the ACF resources page to assess more detailed information on the ACF programs, offices, and partners. Again, we thank everyone for joining this session and have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much.